The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. The clinking of glasses stopped. Conversations faded into silence. Even the waiters standing near the entrance exchanged nervous glances. At the center of the room stood a powerful woman who was used to commanding boardrooms, negotiating billion-dollar deals, and facing ruthless competitors without fear. But on that bright afternoon, she looked completely alone. 3 men had surrounded her table. And nobody moved to help. Before we begin, if you believe kindness still matters in this world and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Heartbound Father Tales for more emotional and inspiring stories. The woman was Celeste Whitmore, the founder and CEO of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. At only 38 years old, she had built an empire from almost nothing. Newspapers praised her intelligence. Business magazines called her unstoppable. What most people didn't know was that success had cost her nearly everything. Years earlier, Celeste had lost her husband in a tragic accident. Since then, she had poured every ounce of her energy into work. Her company grew larger, but her personal world became smaller. She lived alone. She ate alone. And despite being surrounded by thousands of employees, she often felt invisible once the cameras disappeared. That afternoon she had slipped away from work for a rare quiet lunch at a restaurant overlooking the city river. She wanted nothing more than an hour of peace. Instead, trouble found her. The 3 men approaching her table weren't strangers. They were former business partners. Years ago, Celeste had discovered that they were secretly stealing company funds and manipulating contracts. She had reported them and removed them from the organization. The investigation had ruined their careers. Ever since then, bitterness had followed them like a shadow. When they spotted her that afternoon, old anger reignited instantly. At first they spoke quietly. Then louder. Soon every customer could hear them. The men accused her of destroying their lives. They blamed her for their failed businesses. They mocked her success and laughed at her personal losses. Celeste tried to remain calm. She stood. She asked them politely to leave. But they moved closer. Their faces grew harder. The atmosphere in the restaurant became tense enough to feel. People looked away. Some pulled out phones. Others pretended not to notice. Nobody wanted involvement. Nobody wanted trouble. At the far corner of the restaurant sat a man at table 12. His name was Rowan Mercer. Most people never noticed him. He wore simple clothes. His hair needed a haircut. His shoes were worn from years of use. Beside him sat a small boy drawing pictures with crayons on a paper menu. The boy was 7-year-old Finn. Rowan was a single father. 3 years earlier, cancer had taken his wife. Since then, every day had been a battle. He worked construction jobs when available. He delivered packages at night. He skipped meals to make sure Finn had enough. Life had not been kind to him. But hardship had taught him something important. When someone needs help, you don't wait for somebody else to act. You act. Rowan watched as the situation worsened. He noticed something everyone else missed. Behind Celeste's composed expression was fear. Not fear of the men themselves. Fear of being completely abandoned. Fear that no one would step forward. Fear that she was truly alone. Finn looked up from his drawing. The little boy noticed it too. Without saying much, he glanced at his father. That small look was enough. Rowan stood. The chair scraped softly against the floor. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But somehow everyone noticed. The restaurant grew even quieter. Rowan walked calmly toward the confrontation. The 3 men barely acknowledged him. To them, he looked insignificant. Just another ordinary customer. But Rowan stepped directly between Celeste and the men. His voice remained steady. His posture remained relaxed. Yet there was something powerful about the way he stood. It was the confidence of a man who had survived storms far worse than intimidation. The men mocked him. They laughed at his appearance. They asked what business a struggling father had interfering in matters that didn't concern him. But Rowan didn't move. He simply stood there. The manager finally called security. The tension lingered for several long minutes. Eventually the men realized they were losing attention and control. One by one, they backed away. Their anger remained. But their opportunity had vanished. Moments later, they left the restaurant. A collective breath seemed to sweep through the room. The danger was gone. The crisis had ended. Yet something much more important had just begun. Celeste sat down, visibly shaken. For the first time in years, someone had stepped forward expecting absolutely nothing in return. Not because of her wealth. Not because of her status. Simply because it was the right thing to do. As Rowan returned to table 12, Celeste stopped him. What began as a simple thank you turned into a conversation. Then another. Then another. She learned about Finn. She learned about Rowan's late wife. She learned about the endless sacrifices hidden behind his tired eyes. For years, people had admired Celeste's success. But Rowan spoke to her as if she were simply another human being. No titles. No praise. No fear. Just honesty. Something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed again. Sometimes by chance. Sometimes intentionally. Celeste found herself looking forward to those meetings. She admired Rowan's quiet strength. Meanwhile, Rowan discovered a side of Celeste the public never saw. Behind the successful executive was a woman carrying deep loneliness. A woman exhausted from pretending she had everything together. A woman who secretly wished someone would care about her rather than her accomplishments. Finn became the unexpected bridge between them. The little boy's laughter slowly filled spaces both adults thought would remain empty forever. Months passed. Their friendship deepened. But life wasn't finished testing them. One evening Rowan suffered a serious workplace injury. A collapsing structure left him hospitalized for weeks. Without work, bills piled up rapidly. The future he had worked so hard to build for Finn suddenly looked uncertain. Pride prevented him from asking for help. But Celeste discovered the situation anyway. Quietly and without publicity, she ensured every medical expense was covered. She arranged educational support for Finn. She made sure Rowan's apartment remained secure. Most importantly, she showed up every day. Not as a CEO. Not as a billionaire. As a friend. For the first time since losing his wife, Rowan allowed someone close enough to share his burden. And for the first time since losing her husband, Celeste allowed herself to trust someone completely. The healing happened slowly. Not through grand gestures. Not through dramatic speeches. But through countless small acts of care. Coffee brought during difficult mornings. Hospital visits. Homework sessions with Finn. Shared meals. Shared memories. Shared grief. Until one day, they realized neither of them was carrying the weight alone anymore. A year after the incident at the restaurant, Celeste organized a charity event supporting families who had lost parents. Hundreds attended. Business leaders filled the ballroom. Reporters gathered. Cameras flashed. During her speech, Celeste surprised everyone. She spoke about success. She spoke about loss. Then she spoke about a man sitting quietly near the back of the room. A man who owned no company. A man who possessed no fortune. A man who changed her life simply because he chose courage when everyone else chose comfort. The audience turned toward Rowan. Embarrassed, he lowered his head. But Finn smiled proudly. The little boy knew the truth. Heroes don't always arrive wearing suits. Sometimes they wear work boots. Sometimes they sit at table 12. And sometimes they stand up when nobody else will. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your support helps Heartbound Father Tales continue bringing meaningful stories to people around the world. Years later, people still remembered Celeste's business achievements. But whenever she was asked about her proudest moment, she never mentioned profits or awards. She always remembered one afternoon in a crowded restaurant. One frightening moment when 3 angry men cornered her. And one quiet single father who stood up. Not because he was powerful. Not because he expected recognition. But because kindness had become part of who he was. Special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness still wins," if you believe one act of courage can change someone's life forever. The truth is that we rarely know what battles people are fighting behind closed doors. A simple act of compassion may seem small to us, but it can become the turning point in someone else's story. On that ordinary afternoon, Rowan believed he was merely helping a stranger. He never imagined he was helping heal 2 broken hearts, creating a new family, and proving that genuine courage still exists in this world. And that is why the most powerful people are not always the richest, strongest, or most famous. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is simply the one willing to stand up when everyone else remains seated. And in the end, that single act of courage changed everything.